Ripley has now been on Netflix for about 2 weeks now. I was a little bit late to the party, but I'm now here to review it. And you're probably wondering, is it any good? Let's find out right now.
Somewhat.
Ripley.
Welcome back, everyone, to the channel. Hope you're all doing well. As I said in the intro, I'll be reviewing Ripley today. It's been on Netflix for about 2 weeks now. I only got around to seeing it just now because I've been busy reviewing like Monkey Man, The First Omen, watching a lot of other stuff, but I finally got around to sit down, watch all 8 episodes. I actually binged all 8 episodes of Ripley. Before we get started, though, make sure you leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 700 subscribers. I'm going to do you guys a quick synopsis just so you know what the show is about. A grifter named Ripley, living in New York during the 1960s, is hired by a wealthy man to begin a complex life of deceit, fraud, and murder. So let's get the review started with just talking about Netflix for a little bit because this is a show coming from Netflix. You know, Netflix, they're always known to be the top tier streaming service for TV shows, but Apple and Hulu are actually coming for their necks with some pretty big competition because, you know, Apple has been coming up for All Mankind, Silo, Shrinking, and then you got some other great ones coming out too. And you got Hulu coming out with Shogun, the best show of the year so far. Hulu is always teaming up. You know, Hulu and FX always team up with some great shows. They got The Bear coming out later. Also, Amazon Prime coming out with some pretty good shows. But I will say Netflix, they're off to a pretty good start this year. Not a lot of shows, but they have The Gentleman, which I haven't seen, but it's gotten some pretty good reviews. Then they have this show called Parasite the Grey, which I also haven't seen yet. Got some pretty good reviews, not as good as The Gentleman. Then Three Body Problem, which is the other major show. And I thought that show was great. You know, it's like my top 5 of the year so far. Now they got Ripley, which I think is their best show in a long time. Probably their best show since Mike Flanagan's amazing show, The Fall of the House of Usher and Beef, which were both from last year's. Hopefully this is just, you know, the start of it. Hopefully Netflix has some better shows than this, but still saying that Ripley is a great show so far. I was really impressed with it. You know, I'm always worried for Netflix whenever they release a new original movie because 90% of the time they're always dog shit. Like their new original movies are always so bad. I don't know why. But with shows, it's like the complete opposite with them, which I don't understand. Like, how can they have so many great shows, great original shows, but their original movies are always so bad? It doesn't make any sense to me. Just makes even more sense that Netflix should just stay in the show business because their movies are usually not great. Because you know, I'm not complaining that they have great shows because Ripley continues that to be great. It's, you know, it's not the best show of the year so far. I still have like Invincible and Shogun above it. I don't know if I have X-Men 97 above it yet because that's still running and it's not perfect. You know, this isn't a perfect show. I think some of the issues lie with the pacing. Some of the episodes do suffer from being really slow. The first episode was really hard to get into. I didn't start really getting into the show until like the second episode. That's where it starts going into full motion. So if you do, you know, don't like the first episode, I'd still give it another episode. When I watch original shows, I like to give them 3 episodes to really get going to see if I really want to continue. And this one did start getting good about, you know, into that second episode. So if you didn't like the first one, give it another episode. I think you will like the second episode. And I wish I got to see some characters more because there are some minor characters here that I really did think stood out a lot, but you don't get to see them for a lot of the times because this is just a major story containing like 3 major characters. So I wish some minor characters got some more screen time. But those are probably my biggest complaints out of the whole show and that I wanted to mention because I'm not just going to talk about the good. I want to talk about a little bit of that, but a little bit of the bad. So I thought the pacing and some of the minor characters not showing up again did make the show suffer for me. It's far from perfect, but I still think it's great. And this show Ripley is based off of and an adaptation of the famous novel The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith. I've also never seen the Matt Damon film Talented Mr. Ripley film, but I have seen Saltburn, which draws some loose inspiration from those characters. You know, it's not an adaptation of that story, but it's a little loose on that story I've heard, and I've seen Saltburn, but haven't seen the Matt Damon film. I need to get on that. Heard it's really great. And this series is also written and directed by Steven Zaillian, I think that's how you say his last name, who previously wrote The Irishman, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and Moneyball. What a great, you know, resume. He's got some great things there, especially Moneyball. Moneyball is something I'm very impressed with. But I shouldn't be that impressed by Steven because his previous work is already amazing. But he did a fantastic job with directing Ripley and making it feel more prestigious than it actually is. because I really fell in love with the blocking of every shot, felt so detailed, just like what the characters would do, what Ripley did do. You think about every single moment in here with such detail. I was really impressed with his work and style here. I was kind of impressed with more of his directing than his writing. Even though the writing is good, I feel like he focused more on the directing this time around, and I feel like it really paid off for him because the amount of detail that he put in, you're really in the mindset of Tom Ripley in here, so I really think that it paid off for him. I think he did a great job here. And I want to talk about the style of this show because it is a very stylistic show. Some of Netflix shows aren't, they look kind of plain and ugly and gray, but this one brews so much style. This is a purely black and white TV show taking you back to the noir days. And even Steven did say that this is to resemble the noir feel of the novel, which was written in 1955. And I feel like that paid off in a big way. You know, some people I really do like, some people don't like it, but I really do like this choice as a storytelling device and a genre device. But also this, you know, device might detour some viewers because some people are so weird. They, you know, I've been talking to some people, they're like, I don't want to watch the show because it's in black and white. And I'm like, how does that, you know, make your decision for the show, it being black and white? How can you just say that? Like, it being black and white has nothing to do with how great the show is, how great the characters are, how great the story is. I just don't understand that. You're just looking at this and it's beautiful. Black and white, the black and white cinematography is simply put just breathtaking. And Robert Elswit shot this show and he did a great job in it. His work at establishing these locations and the characters was what I really loved most about it. And also, he puts us in the mind of Tom Ripley, which made the narrative even more interesting. The set design was also quite nice. Everything looked so real and lived in, which is something that I appreciate as a viewer because when you're watching something and you can see that the set just looks like a built set and like nothing feels lived in, you kind of just, your mind just doesn't feel like you're in the show. But with this, everything feels so lived in. Everything, you know, the architect at every single building, the establishing shots, as I said, with the locations, felt so great. So I thought the cinematography and the style of the show really was brewing heavily. But let's get to my favorite part of the show, which was the cast. You got a great cast here, mostly a trio that I'm going to talk about. Let's talk about our main star, Andrew Scott, who plays Ripley. Andrew Scott is also known for Fleabag, All of Us Strangers, and other smaller roles. This is easily going to go down as one of my favorite performances of the year, at least so far. Like, I was just blown away. You know, Tom Ripley is, of course, a very complicated and complex character that has a hand in a life of fraud and deceitful actions. I kept getting drawn into this character even more and more after every terrible thing he does, because he then has to find a way to get out of it, which sometimes he struggles with because, you know, he thinks he's 2 steps ahead, but he's always like 1 step behind, and he always has to just make up a silly excuse. And it's cool to see him kind of learn after each terrible decision he makes how to get better and better at these deceitful actions. And it's really cool to see Andrew Scott play this character because I watched some interviews with him and he seems like a really nice and down to earth, kind of quiet person. And I will say Tom Ripley kind of is a quiet person, but Tom Ripley is kind of an evil and kind of complex character that is sometimes hard for actors to play. But I think Andrew Scott did a great job. Like, you can see it in his eyes. He's truly evil, has some truly evil intentions, but he knows what he wants to do, take control of people's lives, take control of money and all that. He just wants to be deceitful, and like, I think it works a lot. I really did love Andrew Scott's performance. I think that he really might get, you know, some serious nominations come award season. Hopefully he does, but I thought his performance was great. Then you had Johnny Flynn, who plays Dickie Greenleaf, who is a major supporting character in the beginning of this show, who is in a relationship with Marge, who we'll get to in a second. And we meet them, they're both in a relationship. This character is like, this is probably the character that I connected with the most because he is the most down-to-earth person, and even though he was easily manipulated by Ripley during some things, he also had the most humanity in this show. And Johnny Flynn did a great job of bringing, you know, much needed, you know, kind of calmer and nicer emotions into the show, because you got Ripley being like the evil figure with like no emotions. You basically got Dickie being like the nice and humane person in the show, so that was kind of cool to see. Then you got Dakota Fanning, who plays Marge Sherwood, who is known from, you know, War of the Worlds, Man on Fire, and The Equalizer 3. I'd love to see Dakota getting another pretty major role because she is really good at her craft. Her character Marge, though, is one of those characters that isn't sure on who Ripley actually is and wants to stand in his way. And it's kind of like a cat and mouse kind of story. She just chases him down everywhere, making sure that he doesn't do anything terrible. She's always on his back and trying to find out his true intentions, which I really did love. and she would just get in Ripley's way and make his life even more difficult every single time. But Dakota Fanning, I really did like her performance a lot. She's, you know, a character in this who's writing a book, but she's also really on the fence of who Tom Ripley is. I really did like that cat and mouse kind of storyline that they had going there. I lastly wanted to talk about the feel of this show, because I only wanted to comment on it because I really thought this show was gorgeous, but it's also a quite calming show, because I did start binging this at night, which wasn't the smartest thing to do, because I kept dozing off to sleep watching it. You know, not because it's boring and all that, just because, you know, the calming black and white cinematography, the slow kind of movement and pace of the show, and Andrew Scott's voice as Tom Ripley is kind of soothing in, you know, maybe not the best way possible because he is like an evil character, but I think it just comes down to how gripping the show is and the way you get put into Ripley's mind throughout the whole process. But what a, you know, it's just one of those calming shows that, you know, there's some major moments that aren't supposed to be calming, but it ends up to be, you know, those one calming show that you really do like a lot just for the feel of it. And I thought they really realized the feel really well. So overall, Ripley, I really fell in love with the style and storytelling devices that were used here, especially when it got slow at times. But it really started to grip me once I got a couple episodes into it. So just give it a little bit of time. I feel like you'll really like it. Andrew Scott truly should get nominated for all the awards this coming season, because his work on this is complex and this evil character is masterful. I really liked his work a lot. Dakota Fanning did a great job. I really liked the ending. I thought the ending was great. There were some really cool, intense moments here, but also a really calming show that I started to really love by the end of it. So Ripley, I'm going to give it a strong 8.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed this a lot. It's been on Netflix for 2 weeks, so go check it out. If you have checked it out, leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Would love to hear your thoughts. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave your thoughts down below in the comments. As I said, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.